Nick Sirianni will be fired after this year, short of them making the NFC Championship game, I believe. Are you buying or selling?
Oh, I'm 100% buying. And I think it's to the point where, look, I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm going to say, I think I'm speaking for a lot of Eagles fans. I know I'm speaking for at least one specifically here that, look, if results aren't done this year, there has to be a change made because, again, back to, what has been done to this roster over the years here, right? Howie Roseman is not playing games. As we've already talked about, look, Doug Peterson was out a year after winning the Super Bowl. And this, Howie Roseman understands it best, Hunter. It's not a what have you done for me league. It's a what are you doing for me league. And right now, what does Nick Sirianni do for the Eagles? Matter of fact, you got Reed Blankenship spilling the beans that, as far as post-game addresses go and everything, it's not even Nick Sirianni's job anyway. So, and I get it. He's the team hype man. But besides that, Hunter, I guess fill in the blank for me. And I'm going to let you spill all your points here. What does Nick Sirianni do for the Eagles?
Yeah, so that is kind of like my main issue with the situation is I will probably buy that Nick Sirianni is gone by the end of the year as well, especially when they're talking about, I forget exactly what they're talking about. It was one of the plays where, Nick Sirianni was talking about, oh, yeah, we have our analytics guy and he's in my ear, but I have what I have on my paper and what I know. And it's like, I don't know, dude. Like, you lost to the Falcons, like Kirk Cousins, who still doesn't look 100%. So this is kind of the lowdown on Nick Sirianni. So he has been with the Philadelphia Eagles for 4 years since 2021. He's 35-18-1. Obviously, they have had winning records. They have been relatively successful. But I will say outside or after that Super Bowl season, they just kind of have not felt the same. And, I kind of looked into the EPA per play on offense and defense. From when they had Shane Steichen, when they had Jonathan Gannon calling the plays, and when, they haven't had them calling the plays. Obviously, they had Brian Johnson. They had, it was Sean Desai and then Matt Patricia, and now it's Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore. So when Gannon and Steichen were calling the plays, they were around, in the Super Bowl year, they were second in EPA per play on offense. They were 11th in the year before in 2021. And on defense, in 2021, they were 20th, but in the year they went to the Super Bowl, they were 5th. Well, we look at kind of the offensive side of the ball, and they've been 9th in 2023 and so far in 2024. But in EPA per play on defense, this is where you're really going to see the difference in what the Eagles were when they went to the Super Bowl and what they are now. They were 29th in EPA per play on defense last year, and they're 30th this year. They're actually... on EPA per play, they are positive on defense, which is a bad thing. You want to have a negative metric in that category. Also, Jalen Hurts just signed a massive extension with the possible out in 2028. We have heard kind of the rumblings about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni over the last couple of years where like they need to have someone else in that meeting room when they're meeting because the relationship is just not that good. Going to your point, he does not call plays. And the good offensive play caller and the good defensive play caller that got him to where he's at to kind of this esteemed coach, they're both, well, I don't know if you want to say the Colts are having success. It's too early to say if the Cardinals are having long-term success, but it kind of seems like he was riding on their strengths. So my thing is, if you were the GM, Howie Roseman of the Philadelphia Eagles, and you don't go to the NFC Championship this year, I mean, we know it was not a fun game versus Tampa Bay last year. And, like, if you don't make it to the NFC Championship or at least put up a good fight and you lose on some bullshit, I'm not saying Bill Belichick's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles coach next year, but, like, with options like that out there, Bobby Slovic maybe, Clint Kubiak maybe, like, how do you stick with Nick Sirianni? Especially what really got me was the post-game speech versus the Falcons. How do you let that out there that you don't say a thing? And I think it was Reed Blankenship basically said that it's like a player, like kind of like a player-run team, like they know how they do this. Like that's a horrible look for your head coach.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have one employed, Hunter. I do believe the entire point of having a head coach in the building is to keep the players in a certain direction, not the players directing themselves. Credit to all the players. But there's again, Hunter, there's a reason that these guys have jobs. There's a reason there's a head coach. There's a reason there's assistant head coaches. There's a reason there's coordinators. Everyone has a job to do. And if you're not carrying your weight, to your point, look, I'll be the one to say it. You don't think Howie Roseman is looking at Bill Belichick over there and going, yeah, that's literally all we're missing. All we're missing is a guy who doesn't stand in the tunnel after we beat the team we lost to in the Super Bowl in the regular season that really doesn't mean much and screams. I always go back to this, but to me, Hunter, I'm the type of guy where I like to, people like to glaze over like little moments, right? It's kind of like, oh, well, that was just a moment. To me, I think sometimes little moments can speak the most to somebody's character. And when Nick Sirianni had his little hissy fit in the Chiefs tunnel, screaming at, I don't hear anything anymore, Chiefs fans. Oh, but did you hear him after the Super Bowl, Nick? Did you hear him after how they won the Super Bowl again and how you guys were sitting at home watching them on the couch? See, it's stuff like that to me, Hunter, that speaks to the man's character. And it's stuff that people want to say, well, those are just little things. No, that's character. You never once saw Bill Belichick do anything even in the slightest like that. You never see, I could go on. You see Mike Tomlin doing stuff like that. Yeah. You see Sean Payton doing stuff like that. Do we see Andy Reid doing stuff like that? I mean, we could go on and on.
Payton I could see, but not it's not. But he's won a Super Bowl.
You would do it in the locker room with the guys. Yeah. And again, if you're doing the locker room with the guys when there's no cameras on, it's a lot different. But when you want to make a scene and a spectacle, which that's where it gets funny to me is, and let's just call it for what objectively it is. That's when you want to. That's an attention moment. That's no. I know that I'm on camera and this is going to get attention, but I'm going to do it irregardless. And for somebody Nick Sirianni's age, that is not only irresponsible, but it's just an immature look. I call it for what it is, right?
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
I'm going to let you know. No, see what you were going to say because mine's a separate tangent here.
I would just say like my main concern for the Eagles is you have a very talented roster and like by no means are you in like a critical position, but you have invested a lot in the defensive trenches and even this defensive secondary. While you re-sign, I believe you re-signed Slay and Bradbury. You brought them both back. And then you go out and get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And it just still feels like this defense is not very good, especially when you've invested in picks like Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. You bring in Bryce Huff. Like, I don't know. Like, is Fangio outdated at this point? Like, is he not the guy to get it done? Because that is what I was kind of banking on for the rebirth of the Eagles. Like the offense, yes, I think the offense, while it wasn't amazing last year, like it definitely wasn't the thing holding them back. So I don't know. Like I feel like if you can't get this defense figured out and you're the head coach, like these are your coordinator hires. Like these are your guys. So I feel like you get one set of coordinators, and if the second set aren't getting it done, then what are you doing? Especially if you're not calling plays.
No, absolutely. And I think so. I have a few very important points that I want to add here. Now, let me pull up just one thing here. I have a bookmark to a tab where I have a certain statistic that I really want to get out here because this to me was kind of mind blowing. But let me but before I even give you the number, I'll tell you the stat because I will get the number. But the stat is, understand this, Eagles fans. Okay, number one, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have the highest time to throw for any quarterback, right? This O-line is giving Jalen Hurts the highest average time to throw. And with that being said, Jalen Hurts is not playing good football. With that being said as well, Jalen Hurts is the highest paid player on this team, and he's taking up a huge chunk of the salary cap, right? These are all decisions that Nick Sirianni greenlit as well. Now, again, it's not on Nick Sirianni. This is also just as much on the shoulders of GM and ownership. This is not just a Nick Sirianni thing. But what the point of what I'm trying to say is when you have arguably the best playing O-line right now in the league, which I would say pretty much right now, the Eagles are probably the best playing O-line, right? You could argue a few other teams like the Saints, et cetera, but the Eagles are right up there. And more than anything, the Eagles have been for a while. So we know that this is a pedigreed O-line. This is not just a fluke. This is the Eagles O-line. And all that said, the receiving core right now, especially when AJ Brown is injured, okay, they traded for Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, that's not looking like a good trade. I know he's just getting in off, whatever. But you know what? I don't really want to hear that because there's been plenty of times where people make trades for guys and then they come in and instantly produce. I mean, it's kind of like fans like to play this game, like just give him time. Well, how much time does he need? I mean, he's been at practice for weeks now. I get that he's learning the playbook and is probably slowly being incorporated. But as of right now, it looks like the Jahan Dotson trade to me, Hunter, I don't know, really wasn't worth the value that they gave up for it. And because let me just glaze over the offense because the reality situation is right now, the offense is not the problem. problem to your point. The problem with this team is the fact that you have Vic Fangio and this defense isn't playing good. And let it be clear to all Eagles fans and every NFL fan, PFF is by no means the end all be all, and it doesn't tell the full story. So let's be crystal clear about that. But if we were to if we were to reference PFF and take a look at the Eagles defense right now, let me just lay this out for you, Hunter. The only two greens, and for people who don't have PFF, don't understand how it works. Green, if you have a green grade, even like a yellowish green grade, you're grading at least in the average to above average tier, right? Now, with that being said, there's only two defenders right now in the Eagles that are anywhere near the green, which is Brandon Graham, funny enough. And because Brandon Graham, as we know, is not even playing the best, nowhere near the best ball he can play, or not even that. He's getting older. He's just not playing the best ball of his career, and he's getting old. And with that said, too, Reed Blankenship is the other one. So we go over here and look at everyone else, right? Quinyon Mitchell, rookie, we're going to let it slide. I think Quinyon Mitchell is going to be a great player long term, but he's a rookie, volatile rookie corners. We know the story, Hunter. Avonte Maddox, grading it at 51.3. Darius Slay grading it at 61.1. All these are out of 100, by the way. Right? We have, my goodness, Milton Williams, 58. Josh Sweat is at a 64.8. Bryce Huff is at a 57.8, who they just dropped a lot of money on. Nakobe Dean, who is playing over Devin White. He's 67th out of 77 linebackers, currently graded at a 34.7. Zach Bond, who had a fantastic week one. As far as a grading standpoint, he didn't have a good week two, and now he's down to a 51.9. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, yeah, he makes big plays here and there, but as far as coverage goes, he's incredibly volatile this year, and he's at a 57.1. With all that being said, and then, because I have a whole different overreaction for somebody else that we haven't even mentioned yet on this Eagles defense. Don't worry, he's coming soon. That actually is one of my entire points, one of my entire overreactions I have here for later. But the point is, Hunter, this team, I'm going to let you go from here because that's everything I had to say. But from here, let's just lay it out. The Eagles, first of all, the bottom line is it doesn't look like Nick Sirianni is the leader of this team. And what is the direction if Nick Sirianni isn't the leader? That's the main question.
So we are both buying that Nick Sirianni will not be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles come 2025.